Hello and welcome back to another episode of the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me here to learn and to grow. I'm so happy to have you all. I'm always so grateful for everybody who watches and listens, and even more importantly, everybody who shares and comments and leaves a review. Yeah, Joey's nodding his head because he knows how important that is. I am so excited today, man. I have one of my absolute favorite people here, Dr. Joseph Allen, who I'm sure most of you have heard of, but if you haven't, make sure you listen to this whole episode because Joe's really going to tell us a lot about what it's taken to get to the level that he's at. Dr. Joseph Allen, aka Dr. Eye Health, the biggest name in eye care online, but also, not to overshadow his actual academic accomplishments. Dr. Joseph Allen graduated salutatorian and magna cum laude from the Rosenberg School of Optometry. He's residency trained. He's a fellow of the Academy of Optometry and a diplomat of the American Board of Optometry. He is a very impressive person, but also a super humble and kind and friendly person. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast, Joe. Again, happy to have you back on the podcast.
Well, thank you, Harbir. This is again a huge honor just for me. I listen to your podcast, and I'm always just impressed whenever we get together at any sort of a meeting. It's always a huge pleasure. So again, thank you.
Always so good to see you, man. I wish I almost want to give you a hug through the screen here because
Right.
that's how we always greet each other when we see each other in person. Again, I've had you on the podcast a couple of times. The first time we did a little collaborative, I think it was like an IG live type of thing we
Mhm.
did to talk about the day in the life of an optometrist. The second time was during COVID. I did a panel discussion, and you were very generous to come on and share your insights at that time as well. The first time I had you on, now we're talking, I don't know, 2.5 years ago. You the early days of your YouTube channel, earlier days, you had about 50,000 subscribers at that time, which even then was a mind-blowing number. But today you're sitting at well over 700,000 subscribers. And that is, like, to me, unfathomable as somebody who a long time ago tried to start a YouTube channel. I know how much time it takes. First of all, I just want to know, like, what does that mean to you? 700,000. I know you're striving to increase that number and reach more people, but what does that mean to you?
It's mind blowing. When I started it, I didn't know if anybody was going to watch or follow, subscribe. I had the drive, like, oh, yeah, this is something useful. This is something people want to watch, but it didn't happen the way I thought it kind of would. Um, and I think some people have that idea when they start a YouTube channel where they say, I'm going to build this social media account and I'm going to get all these followers. And then they realize very quickly it doesn't happen overnight and it's not going to come instantly. And you have to work really hard to even just get one person to hit that subscribe or follow button. Uh, there are unicorns out there. There are people's channels that they'll post one video and somehow they made 2 million subscribers off of that. You're like, nobody can explain that.
Yeah.
But it's been a long journey. But I still, every day when I see that one person subscribed or 300 people subscribed in a day or more, uh, I try to be very thankful for that.
Yeah.
But people leave too. I have people who unsubscribe every day as well. Thankfully, it's the amount of people who do subscribe are more than the people who unsubscribe in a day.
Yeah.
So,
You're heading in the right
so
direction. There's no doubt. So what's the target? Is there a number in your mind that you would reach and you would say, yes, I've made it, or have you already surpassed that number?
I definitely definitely surpassed that already.
Okay.
It was, I think when I hit 100,000, it really shocked me. I was exhausted. That was right at the beginning of COVID. There was just a lot going on at that time. And I don't think I appreciated it at the time.
Mm,
Um, but now that it's just continued to build and continue to build, of course I want to hit 1 million. That's a huge benchmark in the YouTube world. That's when they
right.
send you a big gold play button,
Oh,
and I'm just going to be very. It'll just be a big moment for me at that time.
we'll
But
throw a big party, Joey.
there we go.
I wanna be there. I wanna be there to celebrate. What is the plaque that you have in the back there? What's that one for?
That one is the silver play button. So when you break 100,000, they send you one of those.
Gotcha.
So that was huge for me. But
That seems like a massive milestone, and I can see you getting to the million, the way that you're going, and knock on wood, I truly hope you do, and definitely will be celebrating with you. Um, We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the kind of the emotions and what happens behind the scenes, because I think there's just people just don't see that enough, and they see somebody like yourself or some other person on Instagram who've created a big account and puts out content really regularly, and they just sort of assume that, you know, they're just putting out content. Really, they don't really think about what goes into it. I want to actually rewind the clock a little bit. I wanted to ask you, if I were to meet Joey at like 10 years old, would I be able to, if I saw Joseph Allen at 10 years old, would I be able to say like, I see that thing, a personality trait, behavior, something in him that might lead to him becoming Dr. Eye Health?
Maybe not necessarily a personality trait. I mean, at 10 years old, I loved movies. I quoted movies all the time. I still do. I drive friends and family nuts because if there's a scenario that reminds me of a funny movie, I'll just start acting out and quoting it. And
Awesome.
some people who don't know what I'm referencing will be really confused. But I was always really interested in technology. I played a lot of video games as a kid. And I was just, if somebody didn't know how to get their VCR, that's how old I am, at VCR.
Yeah.
DVDs or they didn't know how things worked. I was the guy that would call over and I'd know what wires to plug in to get everything working. Even in high school, I was part of the computer/AV club. So if the computer system broke down in high school, they would call me over the intercom to go fix something.
That's
So,
amazing.
so I think just thinking back, I'm just like, wow, I have at least slowly built up just the general knowledge of like, hey, how should this at least be built? Just the mechanical things of like, I need to set up a camera, I need to set up a microphone, lighting. I kind of enjoy getting everything put together. So
That makes sense to me. One of the first times we spoke, I still remember this because I had, at that point, I had more YouTube videos than you did. So this is obviously a very long time ago. Um, and you know, we were chatting because you're like, oh, there's not a lot of optometrists in this space. And I was like, yeah, you know, here's some of the settings I use. And then you asked me about color correction, and I was just like, ugh, I have no idea. I was like, he's only put out a few videos, but he's already way ahead of me as far as his knowledge in this, you know, this arena. It's amazing, and I loved it. And so then I was like, okay, I'm gonna stay glued to this man right here because I know his videos are gonna be high quality. Um, so that's cool to hear. You know, there's certain traits, however you want to phrase it, that you know you've carried through from your younger years to now that help you enjoy and optimize what you're doing. I want to step away from the digital world for a second because again, you know, something we were just talking about offline is I think people see you. I assume this is the case. People see you online and just think that's what you do, right? Because it takes so much time to create the amount of content that you create. But man, you are one of the most highly trained and educated optometrists that I know. You know, and you're still seeing patients. I want you to, if you don't mind describing to me kind of what your day of in clinic is like, and then kind of lead over to how do you balance that with all the YouTube stuff that you do?
I think the easy answer is there isn't a balance,
Mhm.
but what I'm in the clinic 2 days a week. I don't own a clinic myself. I work at a privately owned clinic, who is owned by two of my mentors. You know, they're probably I think 15 years, practicing 15 years more than where I'm at. Uh, they have built an outstanding dry eye, anterior surface disease, large scale clinic. They're actually building their second location right now.
Oh,
We usually have 2 to 6 students a trimester. So it's a big, busy clinic and very focused around disease and practicing at the full of our scope in the state of Minnesota, where I live. A typical clinic day, you know, I'm seeing patients every 20 minutes or so, sometimes more if we have to double book or overbook. I have the patient, my students are seeing patients in between, which I have to go and then, you know, see the patient, but also help teach the students
hmm.
by, you know, just reviewing, okay, well, what made you make this decision? You know, maybe we should take a picture of that. What other technology could we use? What could help us make a better diagnosis? You know, drilling them about medication options. Okay, we're going to prescribe an oral medication. Well, what type of oral medication options do we have? Well, what if they're allergic to that? What other option? You know, just you push them a little bit further.
Yeah. Imagine challenges your own clinical abilities too, or forces you to stay on top of things.
Absolutely, which I do enjoy. It also not only does it push me to teach the other students, but then just being in a clinic with a bunch of other specialists, right? We have a cornea contact lens specialist who's fitting sclerals and ortho Ks, and they, you know, Dr. Trevor Faso, he does some lectures. Uh, he knows so much more about those than I do, but I aspire to learn from him. So I'm always asking him questions. We have a pediatric specialist that knows everything about myopia control that I could hope and dream for. Um, and then, of course, I have my mentor, Nick Colatrella. He does a lot of anterior surface disease, dry eye things, a lot of amniotic membranes. So I get to learn from him. Dr. Stacy Hinkemeyer, Dr. Colatrella's wife and co-owner, she's in residency trained ocular disease specialist as well. So again, we're just, and then we have Dr. Shalon Ronning, and we just brought on a new student or just a recent grad. And so we're always just pushing and learning, and it's great. But
That's awesome. You know,
that,
it's funny in like there's that quote that's very well known is that, you know, you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself
Mm,
with, right? And I know that's generally referred to as like in life, in your personal life, but just to me now occurred like that could be applicable in your clinical career too, right? Like if you're because you used to work in a different office, now you came to this one, you've surrounded yourself with these experts in these different fields so you can absorb information from them. It's going to make you a better clinician as well.
yeah, absolutely. I think, we've kind of mentioned this before, but there's a phrase where you don't want to be the smartest person in the room.
Right.
You always want to learn from other people,
Yeah.
and that's definitely that serves many purposes. First, just who I am as a person, I want to always be learning and striving to be a better doctor. But also, I think I kind of in the world of YouTube. When I started this, I knew, okay, I'm putting myself in a public space. I am an
Hmm.
ambassador for our profession.
Hmm.
I have to I have to know my stuff. I have to make sure what I'm saying is accurate. I need to be on top of what's fresh, what's new, and it actually helps me in kind of both worlds. So
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely have been an ambassador, continue to be, man, like a shining light for the optometry world. Absolutely. You know, the amount
you're too
of I
kind.
can imagine the amount of awareness that you've brought to our profession, to just eye care in general. The number of people you've been able to reach is incredible, and it's far beyond what anybody else has been able to do. Right? It's really amazing. Let's go back to YouTube then. One of the things that I've always wondered, actually, you've told me a little bit about before, is how many like comments and emails do you get from like people around the world, and how do you deal with that? Because I can only imagine your inbox must be flooded every morning.
It's a lot. First, there's the YouTube comment section, which uh, when I first started it, I was like answering every single one. I'd stay up, from nine. I'd be done with whatever else at 9 p.m. I'd sit in front of the TV, but I would have Netflix on, but I'd be sitting there commenting on every single comment on the channel. But as the channel grew and more people jumped on, you just cannot keep up with the comments. You can't.
Yeah,
And then you got the other platforms, whether it be Facebook or Instagram or now TikTok, and
yeah,
you just have to accept the fact you can't get to everybody. So, and then you got emails. I get emails. It's got some cool stuff because you get fired up when someone has a positive remark or they tell you thank you or they share a really in-depth story.
wow,
And then you get, of course, some people who give you negative feedback. But
really?
it's just how that's just how the internet is.
It is. I mean, there's always the what do you call them? Keyboard warriors, right? The people who feel like they're like somehow superheroes because they're sitting behind a screen and
Mm.
got a keyboard. But I mean, what negative comments can people make? You're putting out educational content about eyes. I can't like what's somebody gonna say that I can't even think of one actually. That the lighting in the background is not nice enough. Like what
Funny
is it?
enough, no, I mean, people would pick apart small things. In one video I posted, I had a booger hanging.
Get
I
out of here. Really? Did you?
broccoli in my teeth, or um, people try to correct you, saying that you're wrong about this subject.
Right.
There's a lot of people out there who do believe in, I hate to say
The
fake
Bates method.
news or yeah, there's those sort of things, or uh,
Yeah.
and so people will argue that no, your dry eye is not caused by this and that. It's actually caused by rancid soybean oil. And who knows, maybe there's some truth to that. But
Sure.
that there's a lot of claims people will make that aren't evidence based or factual based. And so
Yeah.
uh, the tough thing is being in this space, I believe we owe it to our profession and to the patients or just to everybody watching. We have to be more evidence based and have that. And um, so it just
Yeah.
makes it difficult sometimes to handle those comments. But
Yeah. I imagine. Well, I mean, we get those comments in the exam room, but that's one patient at a time. You know, somebody asking, I've heard that I can do exercises for my vision, or I've heard, this thing will help, or if I pour honey on my eyes, or some random,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, maybe, uh, right? But I cannot say yes to that because there's no science behind it that I could, if you do it, then you come back and you say, Harbir told me to do it. Now I'm in trouble. But that's one person at a time, face to face. But the number of comments you must get, I can't even imagine the craziness that you hear. I put out one video a while back, about many years ago, about nearsightedness, right? And what
Mhm.
causes it. Kind of gave our common understanding of what it was. And I can't tell you how many comments I got on that one video about, this is made up. You just want to sell glasses, and the
Yeah.
Bates method is the thing, and so on and so on. This is the question I have to ask, and I didn't want to ask, but I just have to ask, is like, what about if somebody's trying to start their channel?
Mhm.
Can you give us some tips and tricks, some advice on like what, 4 or 5 things that you would recommend somebody do, that would help them get on the right track?
So there's a lot. That's a big thing I think a lot of people don't realize is that there's a lot that goes into building a channel. I think number one is just having clarity, spending some time understanding why you want to be on social media. If you want to build a YouTube channel specifically, are you doing it because you want to build something as big as a channel as that I've made, uh, where it's built not just to, because like you can build a channel specifically for the goal to just attract patients and bring them into your clinic.
Hmm.
Like that could be your main goal. And if that was my goal, the videos I would make would be a bit different
Hmm.
versus the videos I'm making, which is purely to like build the channel independent from any clinic to just be a resource of video education basically for the public. And so
Can you
there's different
distinguish
strategy.
like 1 or 2 things that what are you doing specifically to just build your channel versus draw patients in? Is there like certain like hook or certain way that you're talking or certain things that you're doing that are geared to
Right.
that?
So I don't really talk about the clinic where I work at. I don't advertise that. There are a few videos I've done more recently where we just did like a tour of the clinic, or
Mm,
I talked about like the dry eye testing that we do specifically at our clinic, which is amazing, by the way, because that video I posted at the timing right now is about 2 weeks ago. And just yesterday, I had two patients who traveled to come see me
wow.
as a provider specifically for their dry eye. One guy drove an hour and a half from in Minnesota. He lives in Minnesota, so he drove an hour and a half to see us. And then this other gentleman, he flew from the Middle East.
Oh my
He
gosh.
flew from Dubai into the United States, and he just like, oh well, this doctor who does dry eye, he lives in Minnesota. So then he flew,
Wow.
took an airplane to Minnesota, got a rental car, and drove all the way to our clinics to see me.
Unbelievable.
So, that's kinda cool, but,
Yeah.
um, in general, most of my videos, they're meant to keep people watching my videos.
Hmm.
So, if you notice throughout at some point in almost every video, I'm like, "Oh, if you wanna know more about, like, Demodex mites that we just talked about, you can check out this other video I did all about Demodex mites," and I refer
Mhm.
to it. And at the end of the video, I'm like, "Hey, if this video helped you out, don't just hit the like button, subscribe, but you may also like this other complete playlist I built all about dry eye treatments specifically." So it kind of builds this idea that patients can binge watch, or not patients, but people in general can binge watch all of my content. They can sit there for an hour and just learn more and more and more.
Mhm.
So that is a little bit different. I'm not trying to tell people, "Oh, come see me."
Yeah.
Telling people like, "Hey, this is all information I want you to know about." And then people just after a while, thankfully, are feeling comfortable enough with me that they say, "Hey, this guy knows his stuff. I want to go see him." So
Yeah.
they're tracking me down.
Well, I mean, if they've watched that many videos, or even a few, like you listen to podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts. When you
Mhm.
listen to one podcast for a long time, it's almost like you know the host, right? It's like you know that person.
Yeah.
You know the weird things, the quirky things they say. You know how they talk, and um, personal things about them that just kind of come up through conversation. So it's almost like you become friends with them. I can imagine people feel that way about you. I imagine if you put out how a little more frequently where you work, you probably would have a lot of people showing up just to say hello or get get a selfie with you or something. Um, So what else? If you could just tell me, like, how important is like the background, the lighting in the background, and
Uh,
that type of stuff.
I mean, you can get really fixated on it, and I have. Reality is, because I'm friends with other big people in the YouTube space now.
Mhm,
There are channels that don't get fancy, and they
mhm,
do amazing. It really it's about the quality of the content that you're putting out. So yeah, everyone worries about the camera picture, right? I've spent thousands of dollars on really good cameras and lenses, but most of the time, if you have mediocre quality camera or just whatever you're shooting with your phone, that's more than good enough. The audio does matter, I would say, to anybody. If you're going to start a YouTube channel, just have a good microphone so
mhm.
that you can pick up the good sound quality. Because if the sound is bad, people will be faster to skip off of it sooner.
Huh.
So, but the quality of the content, having a good title, something that's catchy, having a good thumbnail, so people actually see, they understand, and just with looking at the picture, oh, this is about dry eye, or this is about eye disease, or improving my eyesight. Um, they're able to click that video, and then in just the first few seconds, know that, hey, this is the video I want to watch. This person is speaking clearly. I can understand what they're saying, and I understand like what this video is going to deliver to me,
Mhm.
like that is really important.
Right away, right off
But
the top.
worrying about the lighting and the quality of the camera picture and just like how things are set up, that's more vanity than anything.
Sure. How important is it to have your like all of yours? I think all of yours have your own face, your picture of you, kind of looking at something, pointing at something, or at least there's another image kind of in the background, like you said, that kind of depicts what that video is going to be about.
Yeah.
How important is it for your face to be on there? Because
So
there's going to be some people who are a bit more less comfortable with that, right?
that was a choice kind of based off of a lot of research. So again, I didn't have any formal training in marketing, advertising. No one. I didn't take I didn't go to school to become a YouTuber or anything like that. I went to optometry school, but when I started this out, it was not growing. The channel was not. I wasn't getting anybody watching, so I spent a lot of time just listening to podcasts or watching other YouTube videos and trying to learn from other people about how to build a YouTube channel.
Mhm.
And they've done marketing research, and they have found that, hey, people's facial expressions do we become familiar with it, and it
Mhm.
invokes emotion. And there's even like really small fine details of like people with their mouth slightly open. People are
Right.
more likely to click on that than somebody who has their mouth closed.
That's great.
uh, that their eyes are really popping open, they're able to see it. Contrasting colors. There's a lot of people who constantly dig into the research of this and the psychology of why people click on it. So I'm comfortable with my face on it, but I have some thumbnails that don't. If the video is on colorblind glasses, I have one that's, one colorblind glasses brand versus another. It doesn't have my face on it. So and there's other ones, but
Yeah, it's incredible, and we won't even go into like the keyword thing and all of that because we'll be talking about that for days. But yeah, it's
I'll have some CE hopefully next year, that if people want
really
to really get into this, then
good,
they'll be able to come see me, and I'll like break down how
good.
I do it.
Come to Vancouver. Come here, please, and
All
talk
right.
to us. All right, Joe. I kind of alluded to this now a few times. Some of the more I want to get to a little bit more of the personal stuff. We talk about your professional career. We talk about YouTube, and yes, unbelievable 700,000 plus subscribers. But some of the stuff we've talked about offline over the last couple of years is like what's going on behind the scenes. Like, what are the challenges? What are some of the struggles? Let me phrase it to you this way. What is one thing you would want people to know about what it's taken you to kind of build this channel up? I know you've already said in the beginning it wasn't growing that well, but like personally, what would you share with us, like so people can understand a little bit more about what you've been working on, how much you've been working?
It's not easy for me. It's in fact something I do have to work on. I have to wake up every morning and kind of tell myself, okay, I need to not only come up with another idea of a video, that the video is on a certain topic. And it could be a topic that's not necessarily a sexy topic in eye care. For example, tea tree oil. Like this
Mhm.
last week, people have just been asking if tea tree oil is really good or bad for your eyes. And that all stems from one research article that was published in early 2020 or late 2019. So I had to research that and read probably 15, 20 different articles all on tea tree oil and Demodex, and really understand, not just read the abstract, but request those articles and deep read those articles and really know and understand the subject. But then find a way to structure that video that it's entertaining, that it addresses the problem, that it gives a resolution and gives a call to action for people. Like it's a lot more challenging to put that all together, but then muster up the energy to be on camera and look excited and show that emotion. And then once you're done, pull it over to a computer and sit in front of that computer for maybe 6 to 10 hours, hearing your own voice over and over, and all the times you said the wrong word or slurred your words, or something.
Yeah.
All the retakes. It's basically running a TV channel about eye care.
Yeah.
And when you're mostly a one person job, it is very stressful. Especially considering I make a lot of my own income off of the channel. I still work in the clinic 2 days a week, but a lot of my income is based on how good the channel does. So if it basically runs as a business, then I have the stress of like, geez, I have to do this and I have to do it well, because the better it does, potentially not only more viewers, but also potentially more income it may make for the channel and to keep me able to keep making stuff.
Yeah. So that's the kind of stuff that I think most people don't see is it's just, well, you just turn on a camera and you say something about a topic, right? But reading 15 articles about tea tree oil, there's pretty much nothing you could do. You'd have to pay me for sure. But like there's other than that, there's nothing you can do to convince me to do that. And then to make it interesting, like you said. But the other part that a lot of people don't see or think about is the editing part, right? And now I know that you do enjoy that to some degree. I know I enjoy it too. Like when you sit down and you start to edit, it's amazing to see it come together. But that's if it, like for me, if I'm doing it once in a while, once a month or something, I enjoy doing that. But if I had to do it you do 2 videos a week?
Right now I do 1 full video a week. It's been my goal for the last year and a half to get to 2 videos a week, but I found when I pushed myself that hard, I would burn out and then the quality would go down. The
But
last
that
year,
many hours, like to spend that many hours in front of a screen to edit one video, that's incredible, man. That's a lot of work that so many people don't see. Everybody just sees that like 5-minute video at the end of it, right?
right.
But how many hours went into it, the stress of it, the time spent reading. That's the thing I really wanted to highlight and bring forward. So I think when people know that, they appreciate your content a lot more. At least I know I do.
Right. If there was like a blooper reel of all the times I've said the same sentence or paragraph 2, 3 times because I stumbled over my words or I used the slightly incorrect word, or right now, like there's videos where I've just had to decide, you know what, I didn't notice this when I first shot it, but in editing, I'm seeing like, wow, I misspelt the word inflammatory, like on the back behind me.
Oh no.
So there's those sort of things you have to learn to laugh at yourself. But yeah,
In that case,
there's a
you
lot
have to
to it.
re-record the whole thing.
What was that?
In that case, you have to re-record the whole thing.
In that specific case, I would have had to.
Yeah.
And now, but now, you kind of, when you do something like that, you kind of think, you know what, this isn't a sexy topic. Maybe only a few thousand people will ever see it. It's not a big deal. In that case, that video happens to have over 1 million views now. And I know that some companies are even showing it during like CE
Oh my goodness.
lectures and things like that to other doctors. And I'm just like, 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 I'm honored,
no.
but at the same time, it's like,
Yeah. Pick one where I haven't made a spelling mistake, please.
but the
That's
reality is the true reality is that we are all human and we all
Yes.
make mistakes.
Yeah.
But that goes to just the stress of, it's actually helped me in my own personal development in dealing with the stress of being a healthcare professional. Cause I think a lot of us, especially coming out of school, you get this feeling that you need to know everything
Mm.
and you have to be right about everything. And the reality is you're human first. You're a human before you're a doctor. And so understanding that you weren't born knowing all this stuff. You had to learn it through school and reading articles and listening to mentors and getting experience. And that's changed my own mindset, even about making mistakes in YouTube videos. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, oh, I can just redo that. But sometimes you just gotta be like, look, it's more important that I'm getting this information out there right now, this day, than it is for me to spend another 12 hours remaking a video.
Right.
But
Yeah, well, I was referencing this quote in another podcast, and I forgot what it was. Is it perfect is the enemy of good or done? Right?
mm,
You know, when
done is better
people
than perfect.
done is better than perfect. Thank you. That's yes, that is the better way to phrase it. Right? There's a lot of people who dwell on a perfection and making sure every little detail is correct, but really getting the content out there, doing the thing, that's the more important thing. And then the next time around, you can improve it. Um, but I understand that for some people, it's hard. It's easier said than done.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
is there a point where you didn't want to make another video? Have you felt like kind of quitting?
Oh, all the time.
Uh,
uh, Maybe not all the time, but it does come frequently. Early on, when I first started it, like after about a month and a half, 2 months, I hit like an existential crisis because I was spending so much time not just planning my content, but learning how to shoot content, learning how to edit, playing around with the editing software for you work all day. And at that time I was working 5, 6 days a week and still making
Wow.
content.
Wow.
So I'd come home and sit in front of the computer till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And I do that every day, trying to make one video. And then you launch it and 5 people watch it. Like nobody watches it. And that happened, that was going on for a month or two, like nobody watching, nobody subscribing. I had like 8 subscribers and they were all just my family and friends. And then you'd go on there and you try to find the channel and it wasn't even coming up. Because at that time, when you first start a channel, YouTube doesn't even realize like who you are or where you fit in the web of everything that exists on YouTube.
Mm,
But thankfully, and I was just like, what am I doing this for? Like, why am I spending so much time on the weekends, on Saturdays? I'm at the clinic for 8 hours with my gear, shooting a video by myself and doing hundreds of retakes because I keep on saying things wrong and I'm nervous and I feel
mm,
like I look and sound funny. I'm thinking, gosh, my friends are out, like they're going on a hike, they're going to a movie theater, they're going out to dinner, they're doing all this fun stuff on the weekend, and I'm sitting here still working. And I'm like, why am I doing this? you know, and that was so early. I wasn't making any money from the whole deal, uh, so it was really tough. And I'm very thankful that at that time, one of my good friends, his name is Alex. He lives in Texas, and I was telling him about it, and he's like, "Dude, you're being too hard on yourself. How about you just dial it back? Stop trying to push out one video a week. Why don't you just do, one video a month or one video every 2 months, whatever works for you and your time. At the end of it, you'll just at least have a nice library, some videos to share with patients, or be
mhm.
able to just be like, hey, look at this cool stuff I made." And so that kind of took some pressure off my shoulders. And then I just kept on with it, but slower.
Mm,
And then the channel started taking off,
mm,
like a few months later. And now I think the challenge is that with such a big channel, with so many followers, and then the pressure of being like, "Oh, you've had all this success. What's next?"
mm.
It's like, I'm still just trying to make the video for next week. And what if that video only gets 4,000 views instead of 100,000 views like other videos? Then you feel like you're not doing as good of a job and that somehow you're not as like your video is not as important as the other ones.
Mm,
Um, you have like these inner battles of perfectionism and voices telling you you're not doing something good enough, where it's, something's wrong with the lighting or the camera or what you're saying isn't accurate, or that your own personality isn't as entertaining or attractive as some other YouTuber or other doctor or professional. I'm very thankful I have a therapist now. But it brings up a lot of deeper emotions,
Yeah.
of self-doubt and self-criticism. That's probably the biggest, hardest challenge, I think, now that I've talked it out.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you for. I really appreciate you sharing that, Joe, because I know that's a lot of like personal kind of feelings coming through. I really actually I enjoyed listening to you kind of work your way through that, and I felt like I resonated personally with so much of what you're saying, and I think that's why I'm so grateful that you were open to share that with me with us here, because I guarantee you, like 100%, that there are many people out there. I bet everybody who listened resonated with something that you just said there, like at some point, if not multiple things that you said, right? There's that sort of that the imposter syndrome sometimes people get, or the pressure once they are actually achieving to kind of do more, to do better, or like the in the beginning stages where you think, what's the point of any all of this? Nobody's even watching or paying attention. All of these things, so many people are going to be feeling that, and to hear it from someone who has gotten to the level that you've gotten, that's actually like the point of this whole podcast, is to like share those stories so other people in our industry can say, okay, I can do this too, or I can do the thing that I want to do as well. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a straight path. It's going to be a struggle. But Joey did it. Somebody else did it. They got through it. I can do it too. So thank you, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. No, thank you. I think the biggest thing that has helped me, and what I've even told the other professionals who are kind of thinking about getting into just the social media space of talking about their passion about our profession, it's very easy for us to get hung up on how we look or how we
Mm.
sound. Am I professional enough? Am I saying this correctly? Those sort of self doubts. And unfortunately, when you really break it down and think about it, that's very self centered. The
Mhm.
reality is that if you're doing this, if you're making content for another person,
Mm.
like I'm not necessarily making a YouTube video for my own personal reasons. I'm doing it because I know that there's somebody out there right now who is struggling because their doctor said something about glaucoma, but they don't know what it really is.
Mm.
And they either are afraid to ask their doctor, or their doctor told them 10 minutes of something, but they only heard the 2 words, "You have glaucoma, you could go blind," or something.
Mm.
And I'm like, I need to step up and make this video educational, 5-minute video so that the hope that this person will find it and watch it and find and be like, "I get it now. That's why I need to take these eye drops. That's why I need to keep seeing my doctor." Like, I that's my hope, is that I'm doing this not for myself. I'm doing it because it's going to help somebody. If anything, it's going to encourage them to go back and see their local doctor and ask them the appropriate questions. Thinking about that helps me overcome my own anxieties and self-doubt.
That's
Um,
amazing.
so
Yeah,
I,
that's
I
fantastic.
I hope anybody who's listening to this can maybe take that as kind of a motivation, if they ever want to step into this space.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. One, uh, I didn't think of it that way, but it is that powerful to think about. You're being selfish if you're just worried about how you look and how you sound. It's more about get that information to the person that you're creating the information for, and help somebody. That's
Uh,
powerful, man. I love that. I think somebody would look at you and say, "Wow, he's so successful." But do you feel that way?
do I feel successful? Like, what does success mean to me? That is a really tough question. I think if you would have asked me, when I was first finishing optometry school, success was graduating optometry school. And then it was getting through residency. And then it was getting a job. Then it was paying off student loans. Once I've completed all those tasks, I'm kind of like, I felt a bit lost. And um, I think I've entered a world of much more self-reflection and battles within my own head. So I'm still, I think, trying to find what success really means to me, and maybe not even trying to find success. Maybe just
Mm.
trying to be comfortable with myself and enjoying life and surrounded by friends, family, and what really means, what I find value in, that's beyond money, or accolades and all of that.
Yeah.
maybe there's that. So
That's wonderful. I appreciate that, and I think the definitely for me, the older I get, the more I feel that way as well. I question myself as to exactly what does success mean. It's more about living in the moment, enjoying your who you are, and being happy within your own being in your own body. I think that's success. Maybe that's my definition of success these days. Um, but it's always changing. So I know the tough question, but I wanted to see if you had any thoughts on that, because again, like I said, from the outside looking in, somebody's going to say, "Oh, well, look at that, 700 subs. He's successful. 700,000. Sorry. What's next for Dr. Eye Health? What's next for
yeah.
Joey Allen? What's the plan? What are you doing? What are we going to look for?
So this is something I've been spending more time on recently. I've been doing a lot of journaling, trying to think like goal oriented. Like, what is it something that I would like to accomplish, get off my bucket list? So next, I am maybe contemplating the idea of having a podcast as well, just talking more about optometry, but more for doctors, not so much about
Yeah.
just general consumer.
I may as well quit now then, hey Joe.
No, 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 we're bringing you on, man. You're gonna be
No, I'm
like a
just
regular
playing.
you're gonna be a regular guest. I'm writing CE. I wanna get into that realm, and
Okay.
then potentially writing a book, whether it be about YouTube, healthcare, optometry, or just, I don't know. But that's just something on my bucket list.
Amazing.
Get something published, like, writing a book. So, uh,
Love that. Cool,
so
man. And
that
we'll
that
see
yeah.
at some point we'll see a gold plaque in the back there.
That'll be huge. Yeah, I'll be very honored. I just wanna. I think that'll be a. I don't want to just do it for myself, but also just to be like, look, this is for like the profession of optometry.
Yeah.
This is our just a representation that our profession matters because uh, I think even one time the surgeon I worked with a few years ago, he was like, "Yeah, whoever thought like people would be this interested in like eyes.
Yeah.
We've got our little club of eye doctors who are super passionate about it, but whoever just knew the general public would be so interested. So um
It's funny, Joe.
you're proud of
Uh, so I started making those YouTube videos. It's 10 years now. It was 2012, if I remember correctly.
Dr. Einstein, right?
Yeah, Dr. Einstein. But it's funny because multiple people told me like, "Oh, it's nice what you're doing. It's fun to watch." But like, nobody's really not a lot of people are gonna watch videos about eyes. Now, that's not the reason I stopped. But like, there were, people were saying that. So I'm not surprised to hear people would have said that to you a little while ago. I'd be surprised if somebody said that now, after seeing your YouTube channel. But that was it's just, I think we underestimate how many people there are in the world and how many potentially may be interested in a certain topic.
Mhm.
So it's cool that you pursued it, man. It's cool that you could show everybody that no matter how small or niche of a topic it is, there's going to be people out there.
Right. And I know I'm certainly right now I'm not the only doctor who's making content on YouTube. I'm actually quite honored that I've inspired several of these other channels and other
Sure.
doctors to do so. And I may never be always the largest channel out there. These other doctors may be better at making content. They may make more viral content than me.
Mm.
But I'm very thankful for all the what success I have had and that I've been able to reach so many people and help so many people with just their knowledge, even just again enough to go to their doctor and ask the right questions so that they can get better treatment.
Yeah.
So
So there's always two questions I ask every guest before we wrap up. And I've actually asked you these before. You came on the panel,
yeah,
but I think just to really, I feel like I would feel more complete in this interview if I asked you them again.
please.
You may or may not remember what you answered at that time, because that was 2 years
Mm.
ago, I think.
I'm a different person now too.
Yeah,
So
I was
a
in the
lot happens.
that was like, I think that was lockdown days. So that's over 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago. So here's the two questions. The first one is, if we could hop in a time machine and go back to a point in your life that you were struggling, it could be recent, it could be 20 years ago. Um, you could share that moment if you're open to it, but more importantly, what advice would you give yourself in that moment of difficulty?
So I'll be vulnerable and open up about this. This is more recent. I'm dealing with divorce. Uh, and I had a really dark time. not just with losing the relationship, but I'm getting all emotional from it. It's that recent.
Yeah.
It's within the last 2 years. We've that the relationship has dissolved, and just you enter these dark times when you have a lot of questions and you reflect and you think that either nobody cares, or you think you've done something wrong, that you're somehow less than other people. Or I think in these dark times, when you have these thoughts, that you feel like there's nothing for you to keep going. Like there's no sunrise on the other end. Like you kind of lose hope.
Mm.
I think the important thing to remember is that I'm not sure where I'm going with this. I feel like Michael Scott, if you've ever seen episodes of The Office, where he just kind of connects chains of sentences together, doesn't really know where he's going.
Yeah.
In these dark times where I've had this last year, I've been very thankful that I have friends, I have family, I have, they're my coworkers with the other doctors I work with at the clinic. They care about you, like they care about me, and there's so many people that do care that you exist, that care that you are in this world. They care what you do, they care. But this is even more important. This is it. Sorry for this roundabout.
Oh, you're
This is
great, man.
probably the biggest thing. You are more than optometry. Harbir, you are more than your podcast. you know, uh, your profession, what you do, is just like a small nugget on the outside of who you are as a person.
Mm.
You're a friend. You're a husband. You are, you have a sense of humor. You have intelligence. You have drive. You have passions and dreams. And I'm not jumping on this podcast because you have a cool, awesome podcast. I'm jumping on this because I like you as a person. Right? That is more valuable than your profession, than your YouTube channel, than your podcast, than a book you write, or even just your job as an optometrist or the clinic you own. It's
Yeah.
about you, not necessarily the work you do.
Yeah.
That's it.
Amazing, man. Thank you for being vulnerable, being open, and sharing that. I appreciate that. Again, that I hoped we would be able to have an open discussion. You have gone all in, and you've blown me away with how much you've been open to sharing um, about yourself, and really helping us understand who you are more than just the YouTube person. So I really, really appreciate that, Joey. Thank you very much. So the final question is, everything that you've accomplished to this point, how much of it would you say is due to luck, and how much is hard work? You remember that question?
I do. Yeah. I know I do put a lot of work and a lot of hard work into everything. There is definitely some luck. I want to say like a 70-30% split or something like that, that it's 70% hard work, 30% luck.
Yeah.
Because, I was born to at least a middle class family with an educated father. Or I should say father. Both my parents were very well educated. My father just happened to go to college. My mother didn't,
Mm.
which was a shame because she's brilliant. Um, but then just all of the opportunities that led me to the place that I am today, there's some luck in that.
Mhm.
That I was even born at, in this generation, this time. So sorry for the long-winded answers.
No, that's not long-winded at all. But of course, you could answer 70-30 and stop talking, but that's not really what I'm looking for, right? I'm looking for exactly what you just did there. Give that description. I think you're more generous than a lot of guests, and not to take anything away from other people. Hard work is hard work, and you can't sit in a room and by yourself and hope that something magical is going to happen. You have to get out there and do the work. But a lot of people will say 99% hard work. But hashing it out the way you did, like the fact that you were born, period, the fact that you were born where you were born and when you were born, those are all very important things that we don't have any control over. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Joey, any last words of wisdom you want to share before we wrap up?
Now you're making me again think I need something profound.
Give some Michael Scott quote. That'll be the perfect way to end. You miss
Uh,
100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott.
I love there's there's so many good quotes from The Office.
Yeah.
I didn't watch The Office. I'm just recently going through it.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I love when he's drinking white wine and he smells it and he's like, "This is a white." Like,
There you go. Perfect. A great way to end the podcast on a nice laugh and a nice joke.
there we go.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much, man. Honestly, I appreciate this so much. This interview was everything I was hoping it would be, if not more. You're candid, you're open, and like I said earlier, you're like a shining light for the profession. Everything you're doing, the number of people you're reaching, and the amount of awareness you're creating is just incredible. But I don't want anyone to overlook the fact that you are so highly trained and still seeing patients in such a high level, at such a high level. I appreciate on that level that you're pushing the profession forward as well. So thank you, man.
Thank you. No, this is again huge honor for me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And thank you, everybody who's watching and listening. Thank you for tuning into the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. Make sure you share it. This is one of my absolute favorite interviews. Please make sure you take a screenshot, put it on Instagram, throw it up on LinkedIn, send a text message to a friend, hit like, hit subscribe. There's a whole bunch of stuff you're supposed to do. Please go ahead and do it. And then make sure you let me know what you thought. I always love hearing the feedback. We'll see you guys again in the next episode.
See ya.